のように侍は
So, women have been wielding swords in Japanese movies for decades now. From the days when Junko Fuji and Meiko Kaji were just slicing up bad guys. But as good as Fuji, Kaji, and other sword-wielding actresses have been, their films usually fall in the fantasy end of the spectrum. The more serious and realistic samurai films typically give the ladies a lot less to work with. Sort of like Princess Yuki in Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress. I mean, she was good and all, but she wasn't like fighting a ton of guys with swords and stuff. But it makes you wonder what Shuhei Fujisawa would bring to the table with that. This is the guy who writes the best samurai films. He wrote the excellent Yoji Yamada Samurai Trilogy, he did Sword of Desperation, and my favorite, At River's Edge. He has a very signature style to him. It's a mixture of human drama with just unusual skills that each of the main characters possess. And the story with the film After the Flowers is no exception. So before I get into this, I just want to say that this film was given to me from SamuraiDVD.com. This isn't a sponsor or anything, I simply get movies from there and I review them. And then I tell you if they're good or not. I will say it does have the best selection of samurai films anywhere. Amazon's good too, but they are missing a lot. So definitely be sure to check it out. You can also get a discount by using the code BushidoBlues at checkout. So I heard some people say that After the Flowers sort of reminds them of samurai films that were directed by Yoji Yamada. And I could definitely see that, since they all came from the same stories and writings of Shuhei Fujisawa. The cinematography in this is a bit different. It is more clean. It doesn't really have that dusty feel like Yoji Yamada. Although Yamada does bring out more of the sort of old school samurai movie feeling. But I will say, like with Yamada's films, this does have that realistic feeling to it. The music also feels a bit more modern in this film, and I actually like it a lot.
あとはわしに任せろ。
So, the story follows a young woman named Oito. She was taught a very high level of swordsmanship from her father, and no man is able to beat her in a duel. But it could also be because the men that face her don't really take her serious in a duel. I mean, after all, she is just a beautiful woman. But one day, a young man named Magoshiro shows up, and he's the best swordsman from a different school. He challenges her to a friendly duel. She accepts, they fight, he wins, and she ends up falling in love with him just from that short exchange. It's love at first sight. But it could also just be because he doesn't really look at her as just a mere woman, but instead he shows her respect as an equal. Hey! But if you ask me, I think it's really just because he's a lot more handsome and cool, especially compared to the person that she's arranged to marry. The man she's set up to marry is sort of goofy looking, and for some reason he eats and constantly smiles all the time.
もう一杯おかわりいただいてよろしいでしょうか?
But when Magoshiro is framed and has to commit seppuku, Oito teams up with the goofy-looking guy, and they go on a bit of a detective case to find out exactly what happens.
腹が減っては戦はできぬ。
It leads to a cool showdown, and that's the film, basically. So I will say the film itself is very relaxing. It has great scenery of nature. The music's also good. Fujisawa is just excellent at just writing stuff. The storyline is a familiar premise. I feel like a lot of Fujisawa's work is like that. But like with his other stuff, just the execution is just really strong. I think fans of this genre will definitely be impressed. As for the fights, there is an excellent training duel, and there is one sword fight at the end. Both of the fights are really well choreographed. They look pretty realistic. This might just be me, but usually when movies have women fighting guys, there's sort of this unrealistic edge to it, and it always takes me out of the movie. And it's not because I don't think that women can fight. I think it's usually just the execution. It just doesn't look right. But here, I will say I didn't really feel that. I mean, it still has a woman fighting against multiple men at the same time. And that isn't really realistic, but I think the way that it's shown and looks and just performs is what makes it feel good. The acting itself is restrained, with emotion being expressed through very slight mannerisms. Especially with the lead actress, I think she's very convincing in this. The cinematography and just capturing that natural environment, once again, is just fantastic. I love nature and I love the way it looks. I love cherry blossoms, and this film has all of that. But besides that, and once again, maybe it's just me, but I did have trouble a few times paying attention to everything that was going on. It might sound like a simple plot, but there is a lot of stuff that's going on, and some of the stuff is confusing, at least for me. But when the drama is happening, I do forget that I'm watching something. But I feel like some of the more philosophical stuff was hard to understand. And I do sometimes like the philosophical Eastern stuff, but here it seemed to drag the film a bit. Just the constant philosophical talk about swords and samurai. It didn't really go in a direction that piqued my interest. And I just wanted the film at times just to get to the core of the story. The movie, for the most part, is very quiet. There's not always music, so I think that sort of makes it feel more slow. I think it needed more music. It needed a really good catchy song once in a while, sort of like At River's Edge does. But overall, this is a very delightful film. And it's an interesting take on the love at first sight story that we've seen. And it's very well written. It's a samurai film. What more can you ask? Anyway, once again, if you want it, it's available on SamuraiDVD.com. Use the discount code Bushido Blues. And like always, thanks for watching.
Ba-dum.